Hey YouTube, I'm here in Lumpini Park. I'm hanging out with the monitor lizards. These are my homies, they are my friends. And so I'm not feeling so lonely right now, but why might an expat feel lonely while living abroad? In this video, I'm going to answer the question, so stick with us. The first reason that an expat might feel lonely abroad is that they gave up their support network back home. Family members of theirs, people they knew through work, through church, through their college, through different social networks, aren't going to be coming with them. Maybe some will visit, although I admit that not only is it rare, but timing may not work out. They give up these important relationships to live in a faraway destination, and those relationships are often not replaceable. For my friends back in the US, I can't imagine anyone replacing them. We have a lot of shared experiences, specifically having gone through difficult times together, formative or transformative years of our lives. The older you get, I think that it's the case that, one, it's harder to make friends. Two, the less you change. This is even more the case if you're moving around nomad style, where you stay in different cities, you're going from place to place, you're not really able to put in roots. While you've lost your friends and family back home, it may also be difficult to develop new relationships when people are so accustomed in some of these digital nomad hotspots, expat hotspots, of people coming and going, right? People come in, people will leave. It can be difficult to develop strong relationships when people are asking you, when are you heading out? How long are you in town for? How long are you visiting this city? And it's a little bit different from your hometown. For people who have never lived outside of their hometown, many cannot imagine what it would be like to live somewhere else or to go somewhere else. And so when you try to connect with people back home on these experiences, many people will struggle with the unpredictable nature of this lifestyle. Number two is the language barrier. For those of us who are living in a country where they speak a different language than our home country, it's going to be difficult to have those deep conversations. Now, of course, some local people do have English in my case, and over time, more and more people seem to have basic English, but to have an in-depth, detailed conversation isn't always easy. The people who I've connected with best here in Thailand, as far as local Thai people, have been people who have either lived in the United States or their parents have lived in the United States. They have spent a lot of time around Western tourists, people from Western countries living here. It's not so easy to break down that language barrier with a language that is challenging like Thai. It's just not something that most people are going to be able to learn really quickly, to be able to become fluent and to connect well in just a 2 or 3 month time span. Even at almost 1 year here in Thailand, in this stint, I still don't have a strong grasp of the language, and that can make it difficult to form those deep connections with people. Can you overcome that? Yes, I think you can, but it's going to take a concerted effort. It's going to take a time and money investment. It's typically not going to be an overnight thing, and that's why I think so many people like to look at countries where they do have that common language. I think that's part of what makes the Philippines so popular among foreigners who speak English, because they get this beautiful tropical location, but they can also communicate with people more effectively. Out of all of the countries that I've been to, I found it very easy to connect with other people in the Philippines because of the prevalence of the English language. In some other countries where I don't have the language, it can give you the feeling like you are a ghost, like you are invisible. It can be isolating to not be able to communicate very effectively with others without the help of a translation app. The number 3 point that can cause some expats or nomads to feel lonely is the lack of structure comparable to what they're used to in their home country. For those of us who are used to having a 9-to-5 job, responsibilities and obligations outside of work, our schedules are fairly packed and determined, and we know what the average week is going to look like. We get up in the morning, maybe we have a shower, have some breakfast, get to work all day. After work, we have responsibilities like chores, childcare, staying in touch with people, maybe picking up the phone and calling people. But all of that can go out the window when you're living abroad, especially if you're not working. Like if you're not working in the capacity of an English teacher, you don't have some kind of expat job, then you're going to be in this position where you need to determine your own schedule. And it can be difficult for those of us who are a bit more free form in the way that we think and operate. We might be in the process of checking out different neighborhoods. Maybe we try a week in one neighborhood, a week in another neighborhood. We're not really going to the same places over and over again. We don't have a rigid schedule. We may not be in a position to have that consistency, right? If we're on a tourist visa, for example, and we're gonna leave in 30 days, it's not really all that easy to get in the habit of going to the same gym, find that restaurant that we wanna eat at over and over again. It's just difficult to develop those connections when an established routine is not as easy to maintain as back home, where we sign a year lease, we typically are living not too far from work, we've got all of these predictable aspects of our schedule. It's just not that easy to develop that consistency of schedule that can help us connect with other people, can help create those shared experiences with other people on a consistent basis. Relationships as well, if you're wanting to date and you're only in the place for a month, can you really expect somebody to commit to you in a serious way if you're not committed to that location? And you may not be able to. I mean, most of us are not going to go somewhere if we're single and then, oh, I met this woman and now we're getting married 3 weeks later, such that I have a long-term marriage visa in this place. That's just not realistic. Most people need much more time, in my opinion, to consider something that is ideally a lifelong commitment. Number 4 is that we may not relate very much to our fellow expats. I hear this a lot. Oh, well, I'll go to this country and then I'll just hang out with other Americans, or I'll go to this country and I'll hang out with other British people or Canadians. Just being from the same country isn't really enough to determine if you're going to be cool with somebody or not. There's plenty of American people I don't want to hang out with. There's plenty of American people that I don't want to be around. Being in this part of the world doesn't really change that. You may be living overseas for totally different reasons, for totally different purposes. You may have different interests. You may like different sports. Just because you see or encounter somebody who speaks the same language as you doesn't mean that you're going to be friends. In fact, some bad actors will use that against you. I had it happen to me. Of course, it didn't turn into anything serious, but I had that happen to me in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, where this foreigner came up to me trying to engage me in conversation. Well, first he tells me where he's from, then he asks me where I'm from, then all of a sudden he's changed where he's from and he's going to try to ask me for money in a roundabout way. Then he pulls out a worn clarinet reed and he's got this story about how he's a musician, but the store is charging a high price for the reed that he needs. And as soon as he got to talking about the price, I just said, sorry, I can't help you, and got up and walked away. And I said it a little bit more polite way, or a little bit more tactful way than that, but it's because I could tell he had an American accent and I'm from the United States as well, has no bearing on whether or not I'd want to hang out with this guy. And then sure enough, I came back to this park maybe an hour later and he's approaching local people asking them for money. Just absolutely disgusting behavior, not somebody I want to be around. If somebody's in need of food and I've got the extra, I'm not opposed to buying somebody a meal, but trying to bum off people when you had enough money to buy a plane ticket around the world, it's just not a good look. That does cause you to feel a bit lonely, like, oh man, I thought this person wanted to be friends or wanted to be friendly, and you find out they're just after money. Now, to be fair, I think a lot of long-term travelers are accustomed to this kind of thing. They're used to people approaching them, asking for things with ulterior motives. But for those of us who are new to this lifestyle, then it can feel a bit lonely when you finally feel like you've met somebody cool and they don't want to actually have a real conversation with you. The fifth and final reason why some expats feel lonely is that they spend time judging the place. They immediately go about figuring out what they don't like about their temporary home. Maybe it's the weather, maybe it's the language barrier, maybe it's the food, maybe it's a failed romantic relationship. Whatever it may be, they are caught up in what they don't like about it, and so they spend time judging it. Living overseas can wear on you a bit. It can be difficult to adjust. But that's not the fault of the place, right? If there's a language barrier, I knew that coming into it. It's not a shock to me that in Thailand, the majority of people speak the Thai language. When it comes to the heat, I knew that before I came here to Thailand. So for me to judge, oh, it's so hot here, I can't believe it's so hot. Or when it comes to cuisine, oh, I can't believe they enjoy this dish. Oh, durian, I don't know how anybody can eat that. These kinds of judgments, they feel good at first. You get a little boost of dopamine, oh, I'm so good, and they're not so good. But after you get that boost, you feel feel lonely, you feel disconnected from the people, from the culture, you feel more like an observer, less like a participant. You struggle to connect because you feel like well, what do I have in common with these people? And it can just really not be good for your mental health. So I don't recommend judging, and I think especially in a place like Thailand where the culture is not judgmental, you're much better off not judging. Yeah, some things are going to be different from what you're used to. Different doesn't mean worse. Different can mean a lot of different things, and you can really open your mind to a lot of learning experiences when you withhold judgment. And I don't mean to not think. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm specifically mentioning don't play status games. Don't think, oh, I'm up here and wherever I'm at, they're down here. It's just a pattern of behavior that will lead you to feeling more lonely. I hope these 5 points have been helpful. Why some expats or nomads feel more lonely when they travel abroad. These are all things that could be mitigated or avoided. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you feel more or less lonely outside of your home country? Give us a thumbs up if this content has been helpful to you. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this, and we will see you soon.